Well, welcome to another one of my videos. It's been a little while since I've been on here. Today I'm going to show some practical methods on how to make some fret installation tools. There'll be two parts. Today we'll show you how to make the radiused caul, and then I'll make a second video showing you how to use some very common yet inexpensive tools to complete the project. So hopefully you enjoy. So if you were interested in doing this and not using the tried and tested hammering method, there are tools available from StewMac. You see some jaws here. Notice the price, $300+, and then also another way that you can basically put it into a press or a drill press. Again, pricing is a little bit expensive for the way this works. This mod is about $60. My goal is to beat that. I want to do it for under $20, and I think this is how we should get it done. To make the cauls, you'll use your bandsaw, a bandsaw table that you put on top, a bolt for pivoting, and of course the pieces of wood, both that will swing back and forth and what you want to make the caul out of. So some quick background. Generally guitar necks and fingerboards have a specific radius that is set by the manufacturer. In some cases also they have a compound radius. For the project I'm doing, it's a clone of a Les Paul and the radius is a 12-inch. So when I set this up, I need to have a pivot that's 12 inches from the blade, and I'll show you how I set that up very quickly here, and then we run it through. For the first step, you use a square and you draw a line that is perpendicular to where the cutting takes place on the bandsaw. See here, I'm just going to put this down, take my pencil, and draw out a straight line. I realize it's probably common sense, but your auxiliary table does need to stick out further than the desired radius you have. So in my case, it needs to be more than 12 inches away from where the cutting takes place. So I'm going to draw my perpendicular line, and then I'm going to measure along that line, in my case to 12 inches. I've actually done this ahead of time. I measured it out. And at that 12-inch mark, you need to drill a hole that is the perfect size of the bolt that you will use. At this point, you now need to use your pivoting arm, which you've also drilled a hole in, put a bolt through or some kind of pin, and it will go through the same hole that's in the auxiliary table. Now what is important to note is that where this bolt goes through needs to be less than your desired radius from the end. So this piece I have here is really only about 10 inches long and not 12, because otherwise the blade will wind up cutting through this pivot instead of cutting through the caul that I need to make. Knowing where the center line is, both in the arm that will pivot and on the piece of wood that you plan to cut the caul out of, is very important. You can see I've drawn it in here, and I've also, it's hard to see, but I've also drawn it on the piece of wood. And this brings us to the point where we have to decide how we might attach. For me, I just use the hot glue gun. There are other ways, and you can probably come up with your own. The key is you want to make sure that you've lined up the center points and that you've got it in a way that can go together and also come apart when you're done. After your glue is dry or your attachment method is in, it's time to fire up the saw and make the cut. You just slowly work your way through it. Now, I'm using a small benchtop bandsaw here, so I have a really thin blade, which gives me the ability to articulate pretty well. You'll have to experiment with this and see where it goes for you. But for this is real-time speed. I take it slow, push it through, and you'll see it comes out as a very smooth cut. I don't even need to do any sanding. And now when you're finished, you just remove your parts that you've cut. You wind up with two halves, as you can see here. I've got the one part that has a nice curve that's concave. That's the part that I would actually use to press the fret in. I also have a convex curve here. Not sure what I'll use that for in this case, but there are lots of other places where that needs to take place, including clamping that has to do with the braces. Well, that's about it. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Stay tuned. I will have the second part out shortly. I would really appreciate it if you'll subscribe, tell all your friends, and of course, click like. Thanks a lot.